Okay, so we'll call the regional Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board meeting of April 8th, 2021 to order. I believe we have a quorum. And just in terms of our first item of business today concerns the Cayuga Checklist First Nations membership in the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District. So this is a very historic moment. It is the first First Nation to join in our local government work, and especially with the Regional Hospital District Board. So it's my honor and privilege to represent the board and welcoming Cayuga Checklist. And as everyone's aware, last week marked our 10th anniversary of the completion of the Malnuth Final Agreement. And this agreement was the first modern day treaty to be concluded on Vancouver Island. So this was reached after more than 15 years of negotiations. And the agreement was also the first multi-nation treaty concluded under the BC Treaty Commission process, which Cayuga Checklist First Nation is one of the 5 distinct nation parties to agree with the governments of Canada or come to agreements with the government of Canada and of British Columbia. As under the treaty, the Cayuga Checklist have become formal members of the Strathcona Regional District and the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District. So it's an honor to welcome Cayuga Checklist First Nation to the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District and our governing board of directors. So working with Island Health, we serve to support a very healthy region by investing in healthcare facilities and other strategic capital priorities to provide modern, effective, and appropriate service over a wide range of communities in our area. In the spirit of collaboration and partnership, I am, and speaking for the board, we all are very excited to broaden our membership and ensure that the Cayuga Checklist First Nations interests are consistently represented at this board. With a vast service area, our board brings together many distinct communities with unique healthcare challenges and opportunities. And the knowledge of and perspectives of Cayuga Checklist First Nations are both valued and respected. And as everyone's aware, we've had Samantha for the last few years participating in an observer, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Vice Chief Kevin Jules, and now I believe you're called a counselor, Samantha, and to welcome both Kevin and Samantha attending today as the official representatives of the Cayuga Checklist First Nation. And in recognition of this very important occasion, Director Jules, Vice Chief Jules has prepared a presentation to inform and deepen our knowledge and understanding of our nation. So just what I'll do now is I will turn it over to Kevin if you're ready to share your screen and your presentation, Kevin.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Jules. I'm the elected Vice Chief for the Cayuga Checklist First Nations, and I will be soon sitting on this board as well. Thank you for having me here today and for this being my first meeting. So I've never screen shared before, really. So don't mind me.
Our staff will help you walk through.
Yes, hi Kevin, it's Jake here. So you should have a green button at the bottom of your screen that says screen share, and then you should be able to select your screen.
Okay. So is that good?
We're seeing just the Zoom post attendee page. I think if you, yep,
There
we're
we go.
seeing, yep, all right.
Alrighty. All right. Now, how do I get rid of this chat thing? Sorry, I just got people in my way. There we go. Alrighty. So this is our map, which will show the map of SRD as well as showing the electoral A for Cayucit and Nooka Sound, and you'll see the turquoise highlights being our treaty settlement lands as well. Here's the map showing where Hoopsitas is located, as well as showing our surrounding treaty settlement lands. In this in the small map, you'll see at the bottom left corner, you'll see Walters Cove, and you'll just see how close it is to our village of Hoopsitas. It is very close, just adjacent from Hoopsitas, and actually used to. I mentioned this before, but I used to swim that distance like almost every day during the summer growing up, going to swim across the bay at the dock. All right. Yes. Here is our Cayuga checklist. Territory stretches from Port Creek to north of Nooka Sound to Solander Island at the tip of Brooks Peninsula. Inland to the height of land, and seaward to the point where you can no longer see while standing in a canoe. This one is our KCFN overview. The Cayuga checklist that First Nations amalgamated in the early 1950s, Cayuga to Uctis Island, and checklisted on nameless or Camille's Island. Sorry. After the Cayuga leaders living on Uctis had a meeting with the checklisted leaders about their living conditions up west, the Cayuga leaders came to a solution, and the checklisted nation then moved to Camille's Island, located in front of Uctis, where they did this due to winter conditions as well as being closer to the school and to the store. Due to water, sewage, and health concerns, as well as lack of infrastructure, they had no choice but to move to Hoopsitas for better living conditions. In 1970s, Canadian government relocated the remaining survivors of epidemic residential schools and assimilationist policies. Both nations were moved to Hoopsitas, which is our current community of, and we have about 600 citizens, both living in Hoopsitas and the last remaining village, as well as elsewhere around the island and just all over everywhere. uh, we're the northernmost of the 14 Nuu-chah-nulth First Nations. KCFN Confederacy comprised of several chiefly families, all associated with a natural feature from island to stream to inlet. Here's a picture of where Hoopsitas is located and where we moved from Uctis Island to Hoopsitas. The government relocation and assimilation of both nations' remaining survivors relocate to Hoopsitas. In the early 1950s, Cayuga Checklistit First Nations amalgamated Cayuga Checklistit, Uctis Island, and Checklistit was Camille's Island. And here's Google Earth showing just how far we are from Campbell River to Cayuga. That's quite the distance to from one end to the other. just to give you a little perspective on the distance. Here's our surrounding islands with residents on them. Okimi Island is where our nurses outpost is located. Here's another visual of how close Hoopsitus is to Walters Island. If you look at Hoopsitus, you'll notice that there's a hill leading up to the which runs right in the back here, which leads up to our school, Cayuga Elementary Secondary School. And then if you go up a little further, you'll see possible future spots for a future big house location. And if you pull up a little further, you could see our KCFN aggregate, which is our gravel production site. KCFN, part of Monmouth Treaty Nations as of April 1st, 2011. We have Hiwet First Nations, Yuklewithot, Tokwat, Ucheklisit, and Cayuga Checklisit First Nations. Transfer of certain lawmaking authorities, self-governments, No More Indian Act, the requirement to join the regional districts within 10 years of treaty effective date, and to have lawmaking authority over land use planning and development on treaty lands. KCFN is one among 5 nations who went into treaty April 1st, 2011. We're also known as the 5 Monmouth Treaty Nations. Why did we go into treaty? Well, George Watt said, will it be treaty or 100% of nothing? So going into treaty was the struggle with the whole question of land and sea. Who controlled it? How did we lose it? The Indian Act being the answer, and traditional practices and our way of life were usurped by the Indian Act. We have from the perspective, we came from a perspective of we own it all, but the Queen, the Crown, and the Crown will look after us. However, members were tired of being forced into residential school and the Queen's broken promises and the Indian Act suppression, the cultural genocide, so to speak. So in late 1989 to early 1990s, members met and spoke in favor of having control and destiny and authority over the land and sea question with lawmaking authority. It was their glimmer of hope, their inner strength. That was their hope. Big houses were burned down, which ultimately came down to George Watts's question. Will it be treaty or 100% of nothing? And they chose treaty specific to the land and sea question. We entered into self-government for our people to have a voice, and we need to be the ones to address our situations that come up and come up with solutions best suited to our people's needs. Here's a slide showing things under the Indian Act compared to under the treaty, which you'll see from land ownership to lawmaking, land management. KCFN government highlights the traditional self-governance based on Hutwaith systems. Hutwaith means the traditional way of life, which includes hereditary leadership. This is a nice picture of Uctis Island. Elected legislative council, that includes Hutwaith members. Hutwaith Advisory Council provides KCFN government with advice and take care of protocol during cultural events. Our Hutwaith are appointed by the Hutwaith Advisory Council to sit on our nation's government. And here you'll see a chart showing how our government operates. The Hot Wave can give recommendations to both our legislative as well as our executive. Our People's Assembly gives our people a chance to share some insight and produce some items they would like to have some action put into. And our standing committees make recommendations and also report to the executive. It branches off to the CAO, who oversees the directors listed at the bottom. Approximately, we have 600 plus citizens, 150 live in Hoopsataas or Cayuquit, or around Cayuquit. 110 citizens live in Campbell River, and the rest live throughout BC and Washington State. 44 single family / duplex houses at Hoopsataas in Cayuquit, according to 2014 OCP, and new housing and repairs underway for 2021 community update, which will be updated. This is our KCFN highlights. We have a community center and administration building. We have 2 healthcare clinics, one on Hoopsataas where it is operational Monday to Thursday, as well as the one on Ukimi Island. We have schools. We have the kindergarten, the Cayuquit Elementary Secondary School as well, from kindergarten to grade 12. And we have our dock, our Cayuquit Power Limited, hydroelectric power for the community, as well as the KCFN real estate offices and program space in Campbell River. This is our boat we are boat and plane access only. We take about a 30-minute boat ride from Cayuquit to Fair Harbor in good weather, definitely in good weather. The mail is flown in from Gold River every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, weather permitting. And the U-Chuck brings freight in on Thursdays, also weather permitting. It is definitely makes us a unique nation because of how hard it is to travel in and out of Hoopsataas, especially during the winter seasons where you have to take the half-hour boat ride plus another hour and a half plus on the logging road, which depends on if there's snow or ice, and then you have the highway, and then that's just one way. Then you have to trek right back with whatever groceries you have, and yeah, it's definitely unique. And here's our local economy, a West Coast regional economy similar to other communities in the region. Commercial fisheries and aquaculture, or stable fish farms, or tourism, fishing lodges, forestry, KCFN owned and operated businesses, and KCFN citizen owned businesses, artisans, water taxis, general store, fishing charters, bed and breakfasts, as well as silviculture. Sorry if you hear my puppy in the background. Our businesses that we own are the KCFN Marina and Campground Limited Partnership, KCFN Forestry Ventures Limited Partnership, KCFN Fisheries Enterprises Limited Partnership, KCFN Aggregate, our gravel production, KCFN Capital Assets Limited Partnership, majority owner of Kawatia Outfitters, our guide outfitters, 1/5 owner of Nuchano Seafood, and part owner of St. Jean's Cannery. Our major projects KCFN is working on: water and sewer replacement, power line upgrades, electrical upgrades, generator repairs, water system upgrades, road improvements, community housing, community docks, community center, community garden, a big house / carving shed. The bridge landing, the barge landing, sorry, tsunami warning system, the community cemetery, clinic repairs, also kindergarten repairs. Those are some projects that are going on in Hoopsatus right now. Our water and sewer replacement, part of a larger Hoopsatus village infrastructure renewal following COVID-19 delays. Design engineers visited Hoopsatus and preliminary design, and initial plans are now complete. Gravel production for the project is nearly complete as well, and drilling and blasting for new water reservoir site nearly complete, as well as roads will be improved with the replacement of the water and sewer distribution system. Our power line upgrades throughout 2020, crews have been repairing and upgrading the power lines, poles, and transformers in Hoopsatus. Work will eliminate overloaded transformers, increase public safety, and increase the reliability of the community backup generator. And electrical upgrades. Electricians working in homes and government buildings to address pre-existing life safety issues. Majority of the series items have now been addressed, and the electricians are now beginning to work on making the electrical wiring in Hoopsatus buildings code compliant. Our water system upgrades throughout 2019 and 2020, working on community water supply system to improve reliability and safety. In September 2020, well supply pumps and casings replaced and water treatment system setup finished. Our community housing. All government and residential buildings in Hoopsatus inspected, highlighting much needed repairs. Repairs to date have been focused on life safety issues, primarily critical electrical upgrades. Negotiations underway with the federal government for housing and infrastructure funding, which we expect to be approved later on in the year. Focus of repairs will shift to plumbing, roof repairs, chimney leaks, structural rot, gutters, perimeter damage, heating, and more. Cost of repairs at an estimated 4.5 million. And our community center, September 2020, initial design work for the future replacement of the community center has began, and current plan is to replace the building in roughly the same location with the foundation above building code design flood levels. Design work for establishing flood levels is underway, and land clear work has been started. Big house and carving shed. This is the area that I shown you in the previous slide of just above the school there. But various locations are currently being considered for the big house, and with so many culturally modified trees, KCFN government first needs to create a CMT policy, and planning for a carving shed is currently underway as well. Our big house project, a place to bring the community together, share our cultural and history with our youth of tomorrow, and separate multi-use building for events such as potlatches and feasts. And site selection, design, and construction as our community will get. And I think it's something our community needs to help create a healthy community, to keep our culture and our language and our history alive, and to keep our practices of our culture going. So I think this is something that will help bring our community together and give us strength in that. And I think that, oh no, okay, regional governance initiative. Okay, we have a tsunami warning system, a new tsunami warning system recently installed and commissioned. The sirens are located on a bluff above public works, located there so it can be heard by everyone in the area. And the school is the evacuation site for the whole area, Hoopsitus and Walters Island. So if you go back to that map that I showed you, the hill going up to the school, that would be the evacuation site. Barge landing, the beach beside the barge landing cleaned up mid-October. Abandoned boat hulls, motors, and metal debris removed. Work supervised by a registered professional biologist. Road by the barge landing widened to enable vehicles to turn around, which is particularly important for the KCFN medical van. Their community docks. In July 2020, 2 community docks in Hoopsitus inspected with work, including dive inspections. The reports from these inspections being used to plan repairs to the government dock and the future replacement of our cement dock. Our cemetery on Mission Island, the church recently transferred ownership to KCFN, so it requires expansion and erosion protection. Community challenges. We face the same challenges faced by other coastal communities in SRD and across BC, from accessibility, from boat and flying communities, challenges in the winter weather, winter months with the weather, as well as high transportation costs and emergency response limitations. The infrastructure, the internet connectivity, Connected Coast is underway. Challenges with current electricity provider as we're looking for solutions, as well as water and sewer. KCFN supplies water to some surrounding islands, and solid waste and recycling is expensive to haul, as well as climate change from sea level rising, extreme weather, impacts to traditional foods from salmon and shellfish, sorry. Economic, resource cycles, seasonal tourism, COVID-related challenges, opportunities and collaborations. The flip side of challenges is opportunities to address and improve challenges with other communities. Example, Walters Island and Strathcona Regional District residents living on other nearby islands. From solid waste, partnering with SRD and Walters Island to improve services and reduce costs, opportunities to improve emergency management and response in existing service area, improving electrical supply distribution and reliability. Alrighty, and I believe that is the end of my slide. Thank you everyone for listening. Sorry, Charlie, we can't hear you.
There, how's that? Thanks, Kevin, and it's my honor and privilege to welcome you as a director of the new Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board. So, directors, do you have any questions following Kevin's presentation? I see Director Doug Killian and Vice Chair Killian.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks so much for the presentation. Very, very impressive, and the pride you have in your community and the accomplishments that you're making are very laudable. I just want to say that I've had the great pleasure of kayaking in your territory on several occasions, and you truly live in a spectacular part of the world, the accessibility issues notwithstanding, and I look forward to the opportunity to come back again, and hopefully now that we have a connection through this board, can find a welcome with your people. So thanks so much, and welcome to this board. It's a pleasure to have you as part of our organization.
Okay, thank you very much, Vice Chair Hillian. Any other directors I can't see hands up here, so. Jake, you got anybody there?
No, Chair Cornfield. I think if Director Jules could just turn the host, make the civic room the host again, that would be great. And then I think maybe that'll allow us to better see who's in the
Okay.
queue.
I have Director Anderson with her hand up, so go
I
ahead,
don't know.
Director Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really echoing a lot of what Director Hillian said. Kevin and Samantha, just what an honor. You've been on a long journey for a decade and generations to get to your own independence. And I'm really delighted that you decided to join the hospital board. There's so much that we have in common here. And like Director Hillian, I had the pleasure only on one occasion of spending a week or so in your territory and was just blown away. So I get I get how far it is and how far we are from you. So thank you for giving us a taste of your world there. Welcome.
Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Kevin and Samantha, to our meeting and to KCFN joining our boards. I had a question about the 2 healthcare clinics that you have, Kevin. Is there any possibility that you would want those clinics to be part of our hospital board named facilities? In other words, financed at all by capital from the regional hospital board?
Thank you. I'm not too sure there. I'm sure I can come back. I can find the answer for you, but I'm not too sure at the moment.
Does the status of the financing of the clinics change now that you've become independent of the Indian Act?
No, I'm not.
Not
yeah,
sure.
I'm not too sure about that.
Okay. Well, it's something maybe our hospital board can work with KCF on.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I have Director Morin and followed by Director Grieve.
Great, thank you, Chair. I agree with all the statements made. Kevin, we're just thrilled to have you and Samantha. And I too have spent a lot of time in your area, a lot of kayaking. And I was quite interested about the tsunami warning because my husband was actually kayaking in your area during a tsunami warning. And I remember being over here on the other side of the island, wondering how he would find out that there was a tsunami warning and hoping that he was getting to higher ground. So I found that interesting. And just thrilled with some of the economic development that you're doing over there, and also the projects that you're doing. I mean, is just incredible. The infrastructure and it's amazing. And just thrilled to have you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Chair Cornfield. Yes, I grew up partially in Gold River in the late 60s, and I believe there was members from Cayuga that went to high school in Gold River and were billeted with the families there. And I think we one time tried to make it out there with a boat that two of my friends borrowed from his uncle unbeknowing, and we got about as far as where the gap comes in around Friendly Cove, and the waves were so big we had to go back. But my question is kind of simple. Can you show us your puppy?
Oh. What's his name, Kevin? You're muted.
Yes, he's the one that you guys heard this morning while I was talking. His name is Dog. It's funny. It's just like spelling dog, Dog, Dog. And yes, he's about 4 months old now. So he was telling me this morning he wanted to come out and play.
Good. Is that it, Director Grieve?
Thank you very much for entertaining that.
Yes, no problem.
Okay. Any other first-time speakers with questions? Director Lee, did you want to speak again? I see your hand is still up.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't take it down. I
Okay.
lost my, wherever my hand went.
I had a question.
Yep.
How do I believe he was asking me to change the host.
I think it's already done.
Oh, has it already been done? Oh, okay, I have
can-
no clue what I'm doing, so.
Okay, well, you should be seeing our agenda on your
Yes.
screen.
Yes.
So when you see the agenda, you know that it's being controlled by our staff.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very
Right.
much.
Director Colburn. You there, Julie?
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I was out for a second. Mr. Jules, hello. I just kind of wanted to just put a little blurb in there and highlight to this board, as well as Director Jules, that really we're in a kind of as the closest municipality to your lands, we're kind of in a strange spot up here. So it would be really good to remember that our access is actually not in the Campbell River area. Our access to healthcare mainly comes from Port McNeill Hospital. That's where our closest, that's where we go. That's where they send us when we go out on ambulances and things like that. So absolutely fantastic that you are here as a full voting representative. I'm very excited about this. And yeah, just something for the board to ponder on when we're talking about our regional board and how we serve the members, that out here sometimes it's not all that straightforward. So yeah, welcome, and I'm really looking forward to more conversations about how we as a board can work together and make sure that everybody's interests are served.
Thanks, Julie. Director Arbor. You're muted, Daniel. Director Arbor, are you there? You're muted, Daniel. Okay, anyone else wishing to make some welcoming comments? Anybody else? Seeing none. If no one else is interested, Kevin, it's you and I have known each other for a number of years. I know a lot of your family members. My experience with Cayuga Checklisted has been over the last 30 years when I was worked for both forestry and for the Ministry of Tourism. I worked on the treaty process from the government side, identifying lands and classifying values. Yeah, so was involved over a long time. It was not an easy process, but I think well worth it. I also managed the public recreation and I visited almost every single spot that's out in your traditional territory. It's a beautiful area. It's one of my favorite spots to fish. And I look forward to being able to go back again. Not work related, but more to enjoy the country and enjoy the people. You have very nice band members, very caring, very open. It's been a pleasure working with the nation over the years, and even a bigger pleasure now that you're a director on the board. And I was very happy to see that you were elected vice chief. So welcome, and I only hope that this is one of the first. You're the first First Nation to join our board, and I like to see this as setting the bar high and for others to join with us. I had two questions. In your presentation, you used the letters OCP, which I'm assuming means Official Community Plan. So do you prepare an official community plan just like all of our communities do in our electoral areas?
Yes, we're actually in the process of creating our official community plan.
Oh, super.
Mhm.
My last question is, now you're part of the Nuu-chah-nulth peoples and part of the Malnuth Treaty process. So what is your grouping? This is the West Coast. I understand with Salish on the East Coast. Comox is Salish, and some of our other First Nations are Salish. Then there's I don't know, why did I draw a blank all of a sudden? I hate that when that happens.
Wakiwak, Wagyo.
Yeah, thank you. The Quagyles, First Nations on this side. So what is the relationship with the Nuu-chah-nulth relative to your band? Is it based on language or?
Sorry, what was the question?
Well, it's like you're part of the Nuu-chah-nulth
Yes,
tribal council. Is it based on language? Is that
our language is very, very similar. Like our dialect is definitely very, very similar, but we're all coastal. We're all on the coast, and yeah, I know that we do have some variant language, but there's different dialects in all of our specific languages.
Okay, but as I'll talk to you later about it. I just trying to sort of look at the connections that you would have, say, to the go around Brooks and into
okay
that area. Are you linked in there as well, or is it just the Malnuth
within our treaty settlement land is where we are yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, we'll talk later.
All right.
Anyway, I just want to thank you for your presentation. It was very informative. And so now we'll switch to our staff, and I would ask staff to display the pictures of the gift we have for you to celebrate this very, yeah. You're seeing a picture now of,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's from Muscles and More. It's locally produced, and it's one of the large ones. And a feast bowl.
Yes.
That to help you remember us.
Yes, definitely.
And part of the celebration of you joining and participating officially as a voting member.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. And we do plan on reciprocating and having a gift. We will have a gift for the board as well.
Yeah, we look forward to working together and to continue to support the provision of healthcare to all the residents of the North Island. And I think this is one small step, and I know we will work out all of the finer points. And as we move forward. So,
Thank you.
James, did you have anything you wish, or Jake, staff? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you, board, for the honor and privilege to welcome Cayuga Checklisset First Nations to our board. So our first item of business, item C, adoption of the minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
before we
Director Lee.
adopt the minutes, there's no section in there for adoption of agenda. And I have one item of, I guess it's not really new business, but some business that I think needs to come before the board, maybe for our next board meeting. And
Hey, how about if you did it as a notice of motion, Brenda, and put it
Okay,
under on our agenda? Jake, can you just scroll down the agenda and see where best it would fit, please?
Yeah, that could be raised under new business, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so Brenda, if you wish to bring it up under new business.
Thank you.
Okay,
I'll do
and
that.
do a notice of motion, and that way we can make the motion at the
It's
next meeting.
concerning our pathology labs.
Yeah,
And
we'll get to it when we get under new business. You can explain the need.
okay,
You're welcome.
Adoption of the minutes.
Thank you. Seconder, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on adoption of the minutes? Seeing none, call a question. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing no opposition, we'll move that as carried. Business arising. Seeing Director Evans.
That's fine, Chair. I was just moving into our next item. I just kind of jumped the gun there. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, I just saw your hand up.
Yeah.
So no petitions and delegations. We're all finished that part. Under reports, the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Strategic Planning 2021 report.
Motion to receive.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. And before we go to receipt, I believe, James, you're going to introduce the report.
And thank you, Chair. So good morning, directors. And this staff report here introduces the work that was done by Alison Hapkirk. It introduces the strategic planning that the CSRHD has undertaken over the past several months. You'll recall that in January, there was a board meeting where the board considered 8 different service areas through white papers. We worked with Island Health to develop that material. Following that board meeting, there were individual sessions with our consultant, Allison, to discuss priorities and concerns. In late February, then a second board meeting where the board refined its focus and spoke to some of the director's priorities. The staff report, it includes as an attachment Alison Hapkirk's report on the strategic planning process. And in that report, there's several recommendations. One of which being to explore community health and service hubs, rural clinic grants, and transitional care and restorative health facilities. That work is still ongoing. We're working quite closely with Island Health, recognizing that Island Health is obviously extremely busy with pandemic response right now. We're needing to take a bit more time to really get down into the detail about the financial implications, the value of community services and health services. And so a subsequent staff report will be presented with findings to consider those service levels that can improve community health care, as well as the financial opportunities and impacts that would be related to any of those potential changes. So there will be a staff report coming at a future board meeting to reflect on that exploration and consideration with Island Health. Allison's report also recommends that the hospital board undertake a more formal advocacy role with Island Health. And for that, staff have a recommendation in our report, our staff report, that puts forward an approach for the chair and vice chair to regularly meet with Island Health leadership, raising issues of importance to the board and the CSRHD communities. And finally, the report recommends that the updated Island Health and Regional Hospital Districts Memorandum of Understanding be approved. This would include an adjustment to the existing MOU to recognize that information management and information technology, IMIT, is referenced in that MOU, given that IMIT is integral to capital expenditures in healthcare. Mr. Chair, this report was put together with the help of Mariah Fort and Jake Martins and Russell Dyson, of course. And we're all here to answer any questions that you might have.
Good, thank you very much. James, so questions on receipt. Who is GD? Oh, Gerald Wally. Director Wally, followed by Director Arbor, and then Adams.
Yes, in that report, I didn't see any reference to the cost of including information management, information technology into our memorandum of understanding. I have difficulty supporting a motion where there's no cost involved. So is there some indication of what this potentially could cost us?
I think the costing comes through with Island Health in their submissions annually on the work plan items that they identify through our cost sharing arrangement. I don't know that a specific number could be attached to that in the MOU. And of course, this is an MOU that stretches the whole of Island Health's area. So it's an MOU that's adopted with Island Health and each of the RHDs. So it wasn't intended to be specific in terms of cost impact to the CSRHD.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, does this memorandum of understanding commit us to paying for this additional information management system?
No. In a nutshell, it does not change our annual contribution. It just changes what is able to be covered. And with the change in technology that's occurring in healthcare, a lot of these systems are quite pricey. And so what they are asking under the MOU is that, there's a definition of capital. That definition did not include IT or information management tech, or IMT, or whatever our little initials is, did not include it. Yet it's getting to be a larger and larger expense and is essential to the operation of the healthcare facilities. So they have asked if that can be put in. It would not change the amount of money we contribute on an annual basis.
Okay, just clarify, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
I don't quite understand that if this is an expensive item, which I'm sure it is, and we're paying 40%,
yep,
and that's being included, why wouldn't that increase our cost?
Because it's the budgeted amount that's there each year, right? They have to operate and function in there, so it's up to them to determine what their priorities are. If there isn't enough money to meet their priorities, I'm sure that then they will bring it back to us and say, hey, we need to look at it. And at that time would be the most appropriate when we need to discuss it.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further, Director Wally?
No, I think that answered my question.
Okay. Director Arbor. You're muted, Daniel.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to staff for the report. Before I start, I got booted out of the meeting earlier, and I too wanted to join the chorus of welcome to Kevin and Cayuquet. I've been getting a lot of reports about Cayuquet the last 2 years because my brother-in-law, Sam Rogers, has been working up there, and so has my neighbor, Jed Young. So they've both related how much positive energy and momentum there is happening in the community. And I also want to say that I think our board will really benefit from the perspective of the nation joining us. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and yes, Sam is a good guy. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I've known him for years. He's a hard worker. So good to have a connection there, Kevin. In terms of the strategic plan, I have to say I was actually one of the people on our board that was a little bit making comments around worries around the mandate expansions and such. But I have to say I've really come around over the last couple of months, and I think I've even become a bit of a champion, especially around the notion of the health hub that we started exploring. I've consulted with people in the health sector actually over the last 2-3 weeks. And they confirmed that this would be of high interest and of high value to the Comox Valley. So I think it's good that we got pushed a little bit in our conversations. And I really look forward to the next steps and to see how we can forward some of these things as we complete the exercise. So again, thanks to staff, and I'm in support of the path forward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Director Adams, then Lee and Abram.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for the report. I'm usually a very positive, glass half full type guy, but in this particular case, I think it's a matter of how you interpret Appendix A. And Appendix A is making the reference that there is 70% in support. But when you actually look at the breakdown, that's including the possible votes. And if the possible is exactly that, it's possible. And as Director Arbor just mentioned, things will evolve. But if that was going the other way, in some cases, it would be a 50-50 split. In other cases, it would be like a 52-48. So to say in the report that it is 70% in support, I strongly disagree with that statement, and it's not reflective of what the pie charts actually showed. Touching on Director Wally's question, the advancement in technology and equipment that now is so IT related means that the cost of a piece of equipment that was not IT related before is now being replaced with one that is. And it's just a regular piece of business and equipment, so fully support that being integrated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Adams, and Director Lee, Abram, and then Russell, our CAO.
Mr. Chair,
Director Lee,
comment on the survey.
Can you hold that until
anytime?
I have my speaking order. Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I completely agree with Director Adams that I don't believe that there was a huge support for jumping in both feet to these asks from Island Health. I think our board wants to maintain control of our priorities, and we want to speak for the people who elected us and who pay the taxes for the services. And I don't agree at all that there should be two members of our board, our chair and vice chair, that go down and advocate for our board without complete support from our board on the issues at hand. And I won't be supporting this direction we're going, doing studies and presenting, the staff presenting innovative ways of spending money without knowing that our hospital act is going to change, and we don't know that, and knowing what we're mandated to do. Right now, we're mandated to look after capital costs for the 2 hospitals and the 5 clinics, and we may get a couple more clinics with Cayuga Checklists joining our board, maybe. So I think that we need to look to our future as a region and not simply be here as a breadbasket for Island Health to delve into whenever they want money.
Okay,
so I don't agree with the report. I think it's erroneous, and I don't agree with the recommendations.
Okay, thank you, Director Lee. Director Abram, and then our CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along the lines of what Director Wally was talking about, IT costs are increasing exponentially. At our regional district, we just did another huge amount of money infusion into that. It's going to get more and more every year. I'm sure that's going to happen at Island Health. It's being called, I believe you mentioned, first of all, that it's an operating cost.
No.
Mr. Chair. Yes, you did. You said that very clearly. Well, okay, I'm not going to argue with you. You did say it. Secondly, this will not increase our budget. That is like just totally counterintuitive. If the costs of IT go up, our budget's going to go up. I don't know of any way you can, magically make that not happen. If it goes up, it goes up. But my main concern about the whole thing is that the IT, I guess, section of the capital costs or operating costs of the regional hospital district, if they are presently run under the auspices of the provincial government and their IT people, et cetera, and not contracted out, that's one thing. If they're contracted out, then how am I to believe that I will not see exactly the same thing happen to IT that is happening to pathology? We will see our pathology, as we are, seeing it contracted out, and why wouldn't our IT then be contracted out? So, that then sort of changes the dynamic as far as what we have to say about how much things cost. And I can't support it because of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our CAO, Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to help the board understand the results that are being presented by the facilitator, Alison Hapkirk. And it's not to suggest that the board is going down the road of implementing this at this time. She's just expressing those that have an interest in exploring it. So if somebody responds possibly, that's somebody that may have an interest in exploring it. So that's probably why she's calculated the 70% in that case. And there was a statement made by one of the directors regarding changes to the Health Act. The province has indicated to us up until this point that there's no indication that that's on the horizon or going to be happening sometime soon. And just with respect to the capital that we invest in, it is up to Island Health to manage the operation maintenance of that. Island Health enters into a host of different contracts on the sites of our hospitals and off-site to best maximize the operating and maintenance of those services. And that includes doctors who are contracted to operate or function within the hospitals, as well as those that are consolidated with the other facilities on Vancouver Island.
Thank you. Director, second, well, I'm going to go with first time speakers, Director Arbor, and I'll go to Director McCall.
Are you letting me go first?
Yes,
Sure.
yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
You're a first time speaker.
I wasn't clear because he said Director Arbor first. Yeah, I just want to speak in favor of the report. I don't see anything in it that raises alarm bells for me. And I think the time has passed where we see hospital facilities as something that operates in their own sphere. When we have gaps in healthcare services elsewhere in the community, those individuals inevitably end up in our hospital facilities. And whether that's a gap in nursing services for people that are vulnerable, or it's a lack of long-term care beds, the end result is overcapacity in our hospitals. And in terms of bang for the buck with our investments, it's a heck of a lot cheaper to provide those services outside of the hospital. So I think that we would be looking at this with too narrow a view to not give this some consideration. So I'm happy with that. And as far as the IT thing, I don't know of any large institution that doesn't have IT capital costs, and healthcare is at the forefront of technology. So it seems like just moving up with the times that we would consider the need for big IT expenditures as part of what is funded through capital. And granted, there are smaller IT pieces that are probably don't fit into that category, but I don't know why we would exclude that. So just wanted to make those comments. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other first-time speakers? Seeing none, I will go to Director Arbor and then Adams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I had made a small note in my book here. There was a term somewhere, because one thing that has really helped me understand is really the financing arrangements around that could be that we put them in up front, but we really recover it all through lease to Island Health and such. And I think that that's a huge difference maker. But I do believe there was a term in the report, which I can't find right now, but I have in my notes, that alluded to risk-free. And I would just make the comment, I would prefer just to limited risk rather than risk-free for language. I think it's really compelling, to be honest. And one of my concern is it's one of those issues where there will be different answers for the Strathcona region and the Comox Valley region. And I think that's probably the next thing to try to grapple with. We already got a little bit of feedback from Island Health, but when I hear other board members that are not supportive, I mean, I think the survey indicated, as our CEO said, that there is actually quite a bit of support for going down that way. It's not unanimous by any stretch of the imagination, but I think for the next step, we should put our hats on around what does it mean if there's a huge amount of support in the Comox Valley for walking down that road, and if there may not be as much up north. Those are difficult considerations, but I sense from my colleagues in the Comox Valley anyways that there is a lot of express support for enhancing health services in our valley and collaborating with Island Health. Thank you.
Okay, Director Adams.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify that, as I said during the strategic planning and subsequently, that it's not that I'm opposed to expanding our mandate financially, but it is, I really have a difficulty where we're one health authority or one health board is played off against another health board. And if the ministry was to say the health authorities and expanding the mandate island-wide for all of Island Health, then that's a completely different thing. And I would support that if that's the decision of the government for the health authority. But I'm going back to the term pay to play, and I really am uncomfortable with that. And I'm going to go back to some of the directors that are still on the board that were there at the time that made the really courageous decision to exponentially increase the requisition so that we could have 2 acute care hospitals in the Comox Valley and Campbell River. And that increase of requisition was not in perpetuity. It was for until the cost of the hospitals was paid off, and then the requisition would be reduced. What I'm seeing here is Island Health seeing an opportunity to say, well, let's just keep that level of contribution to our taxpayers in perpetuity, and we'll reallocate it elsewhere. And I think that needs a more wholesome discussion as to where do we make that determination of where we have paid off the acute care hospitals, that we are doing a tremendous job in paying it off quickly to reduce the interest costs and the burden on the taxpayer. But then what do we do after that? Are we then going to reduce it down as was the original intent? Or are we going to reduce it down partially and expand our mandate? But again, that should be an island-wide decision through our agreement with the provincial government. So I'm looking at it more at that perspective rather than the Comox Valley versus Campbell River. I'm looking at it as a former employee of Island Health, looking at the much bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adams. Director Hillian.
Thank you, Chair. A useful discussion this, and I think that the work that's been done over the last few sessions, culminating in the report presented to us today, has also been very useful. I just want to speak to the advocacy piece. which I know has been disparaged by some. I think part of the dilemma that this board faces is how do we reconcile the challenges that we are presented with from the community, such as the pathology issue, with the mandate of this board? How do we effectively put those sorts of issues forward? The letters we've written, the case that we've made to this date doesn't appear to have been terribly effective. I think what we've got before us in this recommendation is a structure that we can create that gives us that opportunity for a more direct dialogue with Island Health on these types of issues that isn't possible as an entire board. It doesn't mean that the chair and the vice chair, if this resolution is supported, go forth and get co-opted by Island Health. It means that they speak on behalf of the board, they advocate for issues that the board has agreed to, and they report back to the board on the results of that. Hopefully in the process, gaining a better understanding of the rationale that Island Health may present for the decisions they make. It's a huge complex bureaucracy that's difficult to engage with at the best of times. And our community is left with real challenges in terms of advocacy. They turn to this board because they don't have other avenues. One of the things we want to have dialogue with Island Health about is that very issue and how they create structures in and of themselves to become more responsive to the community and give the community those vehicles for that advocacy. So I just wanted to put those points forward and hope that the board will support that recommendation when it comes up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First time speakers, Director Hamir and then Director Morin.
Thank you, Chair, and also thank you to Vice Chair Hillian. I think you really clarified for me sort of the process that we could potentially see for advocacy. I understand the hesitation about kind of sending chair and vice chair off to speak to Island Health without direction, but I think this board has made some very clear letters forward to Island Health. And if direction was given via those letters where we do have pretty much unanimous support, for example, for the pathology services, I am in full agreement of giving that power to the chair and vice chair to discuss with Island Health on our behalf. So I would love to just provide my support for that and also for the rest of the report. I was also one of those people who was in the possible sort of section because I wanted to see what the potential outcomes could be from Island Health around looking at expanding our mandate. We do have in the Comox Valley an incredibly inefficient system of small health units spread out, and providing a hub, I think is a fantastic idea, innovative idea of bringing everyone together, increasing efficiency. So thanks to the staff and thanks to the consultant for bringing, I think, what I don't see is so much forcing anyone down a route, but basically synthesizing what this board actually said during our strategic planning. So just thanks to everybody who put the notes together and presented back to us what we asked them to do. So thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair Hillian, can you take over for me? I've got something happening at my house here. So I got to scoot. I will be back within 5 minutes or so.
Yes, thanks, Chair Cornfield.
Thanks.
And our next speaker is Director Morin.
Listening to me in case it's something serious.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair. Yeah, I think that obviously part of what we're grappling with is we have a large, diverse board, communities that have different needs and wants, etc. And I do appreciate the historical piece that Director Adams brought up around where this all kind of started and what the purpose was in the beginning, and certainly we need to consider that. I also have seen this year huge paradigm shifts in all kinds of things, from economic development to definitely healthcare and how things are delivered, and what's, everyone's been, that overused word pivoting. And I think that it's brought to light that there are times when we need to make shifts based on changing circumstances. And I think that this, looking forward to the recommendation, that it does take into account some of the things that have been brought up over the course of our meetings. I agree with what some of the Comox Valley directors have said in terms of just how things are not working well with the services that we have, and how could we move from a different model. And the other thing I had brought up in another meeting, I think, is that there's a potential for us to still, retain assets and wouldn't necessarily have to not get anything for our investment, I guess. And I guess the other piece is around public engagement. And I think that's a big part of this going forward, is looking at that past direction and where are people at now, because I think there would be a lot of people in every community that would support, the board members are reflecting the views of the community members. So I think that if we go into different directions, that, we're all acting on behalf of our residents, I believe, in good faith. And I think that if we involve the public down the road in some of these shifting practices or processes, then we're doing our job. So I think that this framework does allow us to explore and investigate, and it doesn't tie us to anything. It's a starting process to investigate how we might shift to the different needs in the communities. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Morin, and I'll turn it back to Chair Cornfield.
Thank you very much. Everything is okay at the House. So Director Grieve, Cole Hamilton, and Director Wally.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess in its purest form, our directive at this board is to use taxation on property owners in order to fund capital projects. Now, our biggest investment would obviously be in the hospitals, but when you take a close look, you realize that it's rapidly filling up with people who aren't supposed to be there. So I think that is a primary reason why we have to maybe reassess where we're at and how best to save those acute care spaces for what they're designed for. I know from experience being part of this board for quite a long time that there is an element of distrust with VHA or Island Health, because they seem to switch gears sometimes and come up with the new latest best thing. So I do see that, and broken promises and everything else. So there definitely is an issue of trust. But when you look at recommendation 1, I don't know why we could possibly not support it. It speaks to opening up lines of communication about strengthening our interchange between ideas, advocate, cooperate, engage, inform. So I don't see it being a bad thing. I mean, we have to keep an open mind because the world is changing under our feet, and never more so than in the pandemics we're facing right now with the aging population, COVID, and the poison drug opioid crisis. So let's get to work and see if we can actually come up with something that everybody can be part of, and we can move ahead on keeping those beds in the hospital for what they're intended to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Grieve. Director Cole Hamilton.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to just speak briefly. I'm also in the possible group. I'm interested in exploring the possibilities that exist here. And I do share Director Adams' concern that I'm not interested in pay to play, where health districts have to put down cash in order to receive the necessary services. But I do think there are possibilities, such as perhaps centralizing some of the facilities in the Comox Valley, which are currently scattered throughout the community, for increasing the quality of care and the efficiency of care using our capital ability to fund capital projects. I don't favor any particular project. I would just like us to remain open to the possibility of improving the quality of healthcare that occurs outside the actual hospital building. And I think, as we all know, hospitals as standalone institutions which serve everything is a model which is changing and has changed considerably over the years. So I don't want to go on too much longer because I know we've all spoken, but I support being open to other uses of capital if they serve the people that we serve, and yes, just maintaining that sense of openness. Thanks very much.
Okay, is there any other first-time speakers? Okay, seeing none other than I have Director Wally and Director Lee as second-time speakers, but before that, I'm going to speak. And that's, this is just the next step. This doesn't commit us to changing our mandate or doing it. It's whether or not we are open and transparent enough, and especially to our constituents, to have the discussions around what is our next steps that'll balance off the economics, the locations issue. The last thing I want to see, and people that know me know that it's about how we all work together for the betterment of all our communities. It isn't about one versus another, or a valley thing versus a river thing. It's about how we function as a board. Got to clarify one thing, and that is on the agreement and the MOU. It is not about operational IT costs, because we all know what that's like in terms of how those departments have expanded in our constituencies. It's about capital funding, and hence the budget stays the same. It's up to them to do their prioritization, and if we agree with the prioritization, then we approve it. It comes to us before the money's spent. Just one thing, we don't need to jump in to fill a gap that is rightfully the responsibility of someone else. And this item, or this issue about branching out and doing other things, was started in Capital Regional District and it was discussed at the chair's meeting on numerous occasions. And there's at least 3 other RDs that do not support it. And there are those like us that have a small number of constituents. If you take Capital Regional District and the population to cover tens or say 80 million in costs is a small amount to each property owner. And they also don't have their big new hospitals that they're paying off. So it's different for them to be able to branch out. And I agree with Director Adams that this is something that needs to be done on an island, or at least island health jurisdictional basis. Shouldn't play off haves and have-nots. But again, to get back to my main point, this is just a next step. And let's be open and transparent and having the courage to discuss things. And discussing doesn't commit us to actually doing. It's let's explore it. I had concerns as well over the advocacy piece. There's going to be some things that we can advocate with the support of the board that makes sense. There's others where it may need a different group of people. And I go back to when we were advocating for the new hospitals way back when, and I believe it was in Penticton or Kelowna, where the entire board met with the minister, not just one or two people, but the entire board. And there's times that when it's really important that it's going to take all of the board to do that, or a different group of people. But the initial part is to have the chair and vice chair on a regular basis carry forward the issues identified by our board. And it's starting that ball off. So I would urge the board or encourage the board to support that important piece. And it's, I think that the report was pretty good. Is it perfect? Does it cover all the bases? No, but it's a good next step and it will evolve over time. So thank you. And for your patience, Director Wally, second time, and Director Lee. You're muted, Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, personally, as I'm sure you're all aware, I'm kind of adamantly opposed to expanding our mandate, but there's two items I'd like to mention. And the first is the overcapacity issue in our hospitals. We have to remember that VHA designed those hospitals. They were fully aware of exactly how the capacity was going to overfill. They're the ones that are in control of the non-acute care facilities as well. So this comes as no surprise to them. It wasn't due to any, government incompetence. This was orchestrated in their part. They use it as a leverage to try and cause us to help fund them out of their difficulties. So we shouldn't, take this as any surprise. And the other point I want to make is that when it comes to advocacy, and Director Adams had mentioned, and Director Cornfield had mentioned VHA's tendency perhaps to play one hospital board against another. I believe there's times when, as a board, we need to send that delegation directly to our health minister. And some of these issues that we find distasteful, to point out that we're not satisfied with the direction that VHA is taking these things, and advocate, as Chair Cornfield has said, for a island-wide policy or something to that effect. But if we just limit our advocacy to island health alone, I think history has proven that we're not as effective as we might otherwise be. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't see how anything will change with this recommendation. You already go to the joint planning meetings down island, and you know what our board has voted on regarding various issues, pathology, paid parking and whatnot. And we have to fight like crazy to get, as a board, we have to stand together and fight like crazy to get our share of the health budget. When I was chairing the hospital board up till 2005, we were only getting 10% of the spending from the health ministry, and we were putting in 17% of the total budget for them. And I don't think things have changed that much. And every single thing, getting the two hospitals, getting rid of paid parking, trying to get the pathology labs back, we've had to fight really hard to have those services that we already invested in. And personally, I think the government should take over Island Health VHA. I think they should be just eliminated as a middle person, and because they, in my opinion, are not serving us well, and they haven't responded to us. So why go to the middleman? Why don't we deal with the government? Why is the government putting these middle people between us? And I don't believe, can I say one more thing? I think it's very counterproductive to entice some communities to get services that other communities are not being enticed to get. I think it's very wrong-minded in the report to say that maybe we should just go to the local councils and regional districts for support of these extra services. Our regional hospital board, our entire board is the municipalities and regional districts. That's what we are.
Yep.
And that's where we stand.
Good. Thank you, Brenda. Director Abram, and then I'm going to close it off.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Now that you have clarified the operational versus the capital issue on IT, which you hadn't before, and that's what I spoke to and
Make your
said you
point.
did say operational. My point is apologizing to you, first of all, and second of all, that I now can support the document, any document that puts forward a higher level of advocacy, a highest level of advocacy, but I would like to see somehow, somewhere in there that I didn't quite see it. It's all to Island Health. I think we need to have something that also talks about to the minister, to the government.
Okay, I would suggest, if you would, it would be just to move a minor amendment and that they to advocate with the Ministry of Health and Island Health. A simple change in wordage would be enough. I think that when we have a board meeting and it got to an advocacy and sending Director Hillian and myself off, it would be to whoever's appropriate.
Okay, so are you saying
If you feel
bullet
this,
one?
if you feel that this limits it to just Island Health and to not to others as recommended by the board, I would just add the Ministry of, or the provincial government and Island Health as an amendment. If would that solve your issue?
It would, so moved.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for the amendment?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chair, we're just probably vote on receipt and then you can get to the resolution.
Yeah, okay. Well, how about if we change this one on receipt, right? And then it would be automatically come through on recommendation one, or are you recommending that we hold that change until we get to actual recommendation number one?
I suggest, Mr. Chair, to vote on receipt and then you can get right into the.
Okay, super, thank you. So on receipt, is there anyone opposed to receipt?
Director Lee?
Director Lee opposed. Any further people opposed? Seeing none, the motion for receipt carries. Recommendation number one, Director Abram, did you wish to move the motion with
Yes.
your amendment?
I would like to make the amendment for.
I guess we
being
should
able
move,
to-
we should move the motion first and then amend it.
Are
Or
you talking
move
about the
it with the
recommendation number
change.
2?
Move recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. So Director Abram, do you want to move your amendment then?
Okay, I'll move my amendment to that recommendation number 2.
Second.
Yes. So it's to influence the provincial government and Island Health to advance our strategic interests. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Everybody's clear on the amendment? Okay. So on the amendment, is there anyone opposed?
Director Lee?
Director Lee opposed. Any others? Seeing none, I will call the question on the amendment, or no, no opposed. Amendment carries. On the motion as amended. Any further discussion? Director Adams.
Thank you. Would it be appropriate to have a subsequent that the chair and vice chair meet with the minister?
I think if I can, I would interpret to influence the provincial government and Island Health to advance it would probably mean meetings, unless you think that it warrants regular meetings.
The reason why I'm asking, Chair, is in the very first portion, it's just talking about the hospital RD chair and vice chair meeting with Island Health.
Yeah, the amendment was changed to advocate to influence the provincial government and island health.
Yep. Yep.
So
Okay.
I look at that as covering the minister and premier if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That was my point.
Yep. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none on the question, is there anyone opposed?
Director Lee.
Director Lee is opposed. Seeing no others, the motion carries as amended. Recommendation number 2. That the Comox Strathcona
So
Regional.
moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Call the question. Is there anyone opposed?
Director Lee.
Director
Wally's
Lee is
opposed to this one.
Director Wally. Okay. Anyone further? Motion's carried. So bylaws, resolutions, new business, Director Lee.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, management report.
Oh, sorry. I skipped over it.
I'll move the management report.
Move receipt of the management report.
Thank you. Any discussion on the management report? I don't see any hands up. You're gonna get off easy. So on the management report on receipt, any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The notice of motion I have is that the letter of April 6, 2021 from the Citizens for Quality Healthcare, which was in our correspondence file, be brought forward to our next CSRHD meeting, along with a staff report on the status of our CHRSD motions regarding the restoration of our pathology labs and our board's request to be extricated from the contract between Island Health and the private VIC PCC pathology contract in Victoria.
Okay, so
Second.
do you have
Second.
that all written out, Director Lee?
Yes, I do.
Okay, can you get that to staff?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So discussion on, well, actually, there's no discussion on a notice of motion, correct?
No.
So it will be on the next agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
And when is our next board meeting?
Chair, if I could just ask, there is direction there to staff to prepare a report, so that would be voted on at the next meeting, just so I have.
Correct.
I'm asking.
That's correct.
So no staff report for the next meeting. We're just putting the correspondence on, and then you will be directing staff possibly to do that.
Well, Director Lee's got her motion, the motion will be on the next agenda for the board to vote on.
Okay.
Right? Rather
Yes.
than doing it on the fly.
Yep.
Right. And it gives you advance warning that there's going to be a request for a report through the staff, and you guys will deal with it in your utmost professional and effective way that you usually do. Okay, so
I'll move termination.
thank you.
Second, Chair, I had my hand up.
You did. Oh, sorry, Jim, I didn't see it. Director Abram.
That's okay, I'll forgive you this once. So being a notice of motion and what Mr. Dyson just pointed out, then puts it off to another meeting. And I believe that this is a more timely issue than that time would require. So I would rather see it instead of a notice of motion, that it just be motion presented to staff, it's in writing, and that we vote on, do we do a report or don't we? And if we do, then we'll come back to our next meeting. And we can take care of it in 2 weeks instead of a full month.
I really have difficulty taking motions on the fly that the whole board is not up to speed on. And hence the notice of motion is a proper way to do it. And it's there. We all know what the issue is, so it's not bringing up anything new. Island Health has done whatever they're going to do. And we need to do it in our process and in our way, deal with it as well. So, okay. So we have a motion to terminate.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We have a seconder for that.
Just before we terminate, I just
I'll
wanted
give you a
to,
little latitude.
okay.
Director Lee. I,
just because Director Abrams' point about doing it
Yeah.
as a now, the letter from the Citizens for Quality Healthcare was only received on April 6th, just a few days ago.
Right.
And I didn't feel confident about making a motion at this board meeting until I get some more information from staff regarding the content of that letter.
good. Thank you, Director Lee. And I would urge you to contact through Mr. Dyson to talk about how you can gain that additional information. Director Unger?
Nothing. Motion to terminate.
Thank you. We already had it moved and seconded. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Thank you very much, board. Go celebrate the fact that we have expanded our board to include the First Nation part of a hospital district. So